Lesson 25, we continue reading from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Chapter 1, Sutra 18. So what we had last week was an introduction, a little bit of history of yoga, and basically the history of the world from the perspective of yoga. Then we had a little tips on how to create a perfect environment in which to benefit from your yoga practice, in which to grow and develop. And the yamas and the niyamas were described, and then now we have the introduction of asana. It starts with Sutra 18. I proceed to describe some of the asanas accepted by the sages as Vasishtha and yogins such as Machendra. So what he does here, he has done several times before. He refers to some influential yogis. One is the sage Vasishtha, which we don't know so much about. Oh, we know Machendra, remember? Machendra is the first human being, the fish that listened to the yoga teachings from Lord Shiva to Parvati, and according to tradition, became the first human being. Like in Korean tradition, Pangun was the first human being, and in the Christian tradition, Adam and Eve were the first human beings. So the reason why he does that is not to create mystery, but it is to emphasize that what follows now is important. There is something special is following. Sutra 19 then starts with the first asana. Having correctly placed both soles of the feet between the thighs and the knees, one should sit balanced and straight-bodied. This is called Svastikasana. This is meditation pose. So that is not so difficult. But what is interesting is the name. We call it Sukhasana. And Sukha means easy, comfortable. Svastika has a different meaning. And as a European born after the Second World War, I know what swastika means, but many people don't know what swastika means. But it's a symbol that you see very often in Korea, because it's a Buddhist symbol that later was used by the Nazis for their ideology. But because in Korea you have many temples, you see this everywhere. This is a swastika. It's a Buddhist kind of cross. I don't know the details, it would be easy to find, but it's for our purposes not so very important. But it's a cross that has a meaning, something related to harmony or something like that. Swastika. That is the name given by Machendra, given by Svatmarama to the meditation pose that we know as Sukhasana. So not so much to add there. The next, Sutra 20, place the right ankle next to the left buttock and the left ankle next to the right buttock. This is Gomukhasana and resembles the face of a cow. Gomukha literally means face of a cow. Go is a cow, mukha is face. Asana is posture, of course. This pose is very often done wrong, so it requires a little bit of attention, because in most yoga studios these days it is done like this, with the hands then joined behind the back. But this is not correct. It doesn't work like this. This is too easy. If you look at the drawing and also the description, it is done like this. So you stand on your knees, you put your lower legs parallel to each other, and then when you sit down, you don't allow your foot to slip away. You have to keep them together. So you're not going to do like this to accommodate that you can sit down. You create this friction. It is this intensity that you create in this way that makes this exercise work. And because you cannot really sit down, you're kind of balancing. And then you join the hands behind your back. And because it's asymmetric, when you're done with this side, then you come out of the pose and you, of course, repeat it on the other side. So to get into pose properly, you really have to stand on your knees like this, and only after you put your legs parallel next to each other, you then sit down and not allowing that foot to separate, to slip away. '21. Place one foot firmly on the other thigh and the right thigh on the other foot. This is called Virasana. It's a little bit puzzling description, but Virasana we know. It goes like this. Vira means hero. If you're a bit flexible, you can actually sit on the ground with your buttocks. And you put your hands not on your knees, but on your thighs, so that your arms and shoulders are not tensed. And then you do the same as you do in a meditation pose. You straighten your back, stretch up the neck, and you sit straight. And if you close your eyes and you sit like this in silence, you will notice that nada becomes very clear. And what is not described here is Supta Vira. Supta means sleeping. There's a sleeping hero that you can do. If you're comfortable in Virasana, you can lie down and increase the intensity of Virasana. Virasana in a practical sense is really good for the knees and the ankles. Knees and the ankles are delicate joints that connect big muscles, the big muscles of the thighs and the big muscles of the calves are connected by complex and delicate joints, like especially the knees, but also the ankles. And in sports, the most common injuries are to the ankles and the knees. If you do Virasana regularly, the chance that you injure your knee or ankle is reduced considerably. '22. Press the anus firmly with the ankles in opposite direction and sit well poised. This is Kurmasana, according to the yogins. Kurma is a turtle or tortoise. Now this one is a little bit intense. This is a forward bend. We have done some forward bend standing, but it is a forward bend on steroids, because you have Padangustasana, which we do standing. Here it's Paschimottanasana when you do it sitting, but in Kurmasana, what you do is you put your knees, your legs over your arms, with your arms spread, and then you push your feet forward. So it forces a very deep forward bend. And you can only do this if you're already a little bit flexible, otherwise you're going to hurt yourself. So you have to be really careful. If it is not possible, just focus on the forward bend as we know it, and in a later stage, you carefully try to do this. I started also with Kurmasana in the beginning, just lightly trying it and doing it every day until I just without effort could do it without hurting myself. So if you were interested in doing Kurmasana, be careful, and if you do it regularly, you will quickly improve. But remember the principle of non-violence, ahimsa. If you feel any serious pain, you really have to stop doing it. 23. Assuming the Padmasana, insert the hands between the thighs and the knees, planting them firmly on the ground, rise in the air. This is Kukuttasana. Kukutta is a rooster. So it's a very advanced pose that involves Padmasana. But once you're in Padmasana, you then have to put your hands through. And you have to start with the foot that is on top. Because you have to lock in this foot. So you have to start with the foot that is on top. So you have to start with the other foot. Otherwise you can never get your hand in. So you start with this one. Then you push this one through. And then you try to find balance on your hands. Kukuttasana, the rooster. Then the next pose described. You have to push your arms through until the elbows. Yeah. It's okay. It's a very advanced pose. Yeah. The most advanced poses are all arm balances. I mentioned it before. This is one of them. And the one that you just did before also is one of those two. One of the arm balances. Because the intense activity with the arm stimulates the heart, and the balancing element brings that energy up. '24 is based on Kukuttasana. So, assuming the Kukuttasana posture, wind the arms around the neck and lie on the back like a tortoise. This is called Uttana Kurmasana. 25. Taking hold of the toes with the hands, keep one arm stretched in front, draw the other up to the ear as if drawing a bow. This is called Dhanurasana. There is an error here. Dhanurasana is the picture that you see. You lie on your belly, soon it will be on our schedule also. You lie on your belly and you grab your ankles. So you have a bow. But that is not what is described here if you read the text. Taking hold of the toes with the hands, you grab your toes. Draw the other up, so keep one arm stretched in front of you, draw the other up to the ear as if drawing a bow. This is not called Dhanurasana as the text says, it's called Akarna Dhanura. Akarna. Akarna literally means at the ear. Like we know Karnapida, pressure on the ear. Akarna is at the ear, bow pose. And it resembles exactly the motion of shooting an arrow. Before you shoot the arrow, you pull the bow. And that's exactly what you do. It's a very interesting exercise because of the different elements. you're intensely using your arm, which stimulates the heart chakra, but you're also opening the pelvis. So the legs are involved, the hips are involved, and the upper body is involved intensely. So it's a very complete posture in that sense. 26. Place the right foot at the base of the left thigh and the left foot outside the right knee. Take hold of the right foot by the left hand and the left foot by the right hand, and remain with the body turned around to the left. This is the asana described by Machendra. So this pose, which most yoga practitioners know, it's a classical pose, is actually called after the first human being. It's often done wrong because people pull their foot back too far. The text is clear. You put this foot next to your knee. And important is that both buttocks are on the ground so that your spine is straight. Because if one buttock is off the ground, which is the way that many people do it, your spine is bent. You want your spine to be straight while you are turning it, twisting it. And the reason why it's called Machendra, the first human being, which indicates it's a valuable pose, is because if you do this correctly, it leads to a very strong stimulation of all the chakras from the bottom up. Every spinal twist stimulates all the chakras from the bottom up. Well, it's important that we keep the spine straight. We have seen that with Jatara Parivartanasana also, where I told you to make a correction with your hips before you lower your legs so that your spine doesn't bend while you are twisting it. There are two stages with this pose. The first stage is when you're not so flexible yet. You embrace your knee. Many people then bend their back. So it's important that you keep sitting straight. Now, if you're a little bit flexible already, you go to the second stage. You use your arm as a lever and you grab this foot or your knee. If you can't grab your foot, you grab your knee. But again, we have the principle of ahimsa. Do not force yourself this way. If you cannot do this yet, be patient. You will get there, but start with this first stage, and then later when you feel more flexible, you can try the second stage. Now you see with the previous poses, each asana is described with one sutra. Here, he continues in Sutra 27, which indicates that this one is more important and valuable than the ones that came before. Sutra 27, this Machendrasana, which increases appetite, you can ignore that. Fanning the gastric fire is a weapon that destroys all the terrible diseases of the body. With daily practice, it arouses the Kundalini and it makes the moon steady in men. Very interesting. Ignore that little phrase that it fans, increases appetite, but it fans the gastric fire. The gastric fire is the phenomenon of the three chakras in the belly becoming one big ball of energy, vital energy. And people who possess that phenomenon, in Korean it's called Danjeon phenomenon, they become very healthy. And this sutra tells us that it is a weapon that destroys all the terrible diseases of the body. With daily practice, it arouses the Kundalini, which is what I just said, is that if you keep your back straight and you twist, it stimulates all the chakras, leading to energy rising up. But then it says, it makes the moon steady in man. What does that mean? The moon is the entrance through which Shiva energy comes in. Now, everybody knows, especially women know, that man can be very toxic. It is called toxic masculinity. It is toxic masculinity that makes it impossible for me to communicate with most men. And most women too. You recognize that, huh? When the moon is steady in men, they are not toxic anymore. And it is, you find this especially among men who practice yoga. They stop being toxic. That toxicity, that is not a choice, that is just human nature. That is thousands of years or tens of thousands of years. You find this toxic masculinity with male dogs also. If they don't cut their paws, if they're not castrated, they have a certain aggression. We are no different. Men are no different. And that is why men can have this presence that you want to stay away from. Maybe your father or a brother or an uncle or at work, they're always, that making the moon steady in man, that is smoothening or softening that instinct that always wants to fight and wants to control. They're very valuable. It is also the reason why I always say to my students, because these days most yoga practitioners are women, right? But it used to be a man thing, long time ago. And I strongly believe that yoga is more important for men than for women. Because women have many of the qualities already by nature. Sutra 28, stretch out both legs on the ground without bending them. And having taken hold of the toes of the feet with the hands, place the forehead upon the knees and rest thus. This is Paschimottanasana. Now this is the forward bend. We have done 3 versions standing. This one will be on the schedule soon too. Paschimottanasana. It is important that you, especially if you're flexible already, that you do this without bending the back, because this is not about bending the back, this is about bending the hips. And the text says that you must put your head on your knees. Don't try to put your head on your knees, because then you bend the back and the engagement is much less intense. I always say, try to put your head beyond your feet. Just imagine. You can't do that, of course, but you try to go there, because that makes your back straight and it forces the intense tilting of the pelvis. Another thing that is misinterpretation is that it says rest thus. So you rest in the pose. I've explained it in the beginning about asana, that one of the mistakes that many teachers make is that they say, relax in the pose. But if you relax in the pose, it becomes tamas. The secret of asana is that you neither engage too strongly nor relax too much, but you are exactly in the middle. So you engage without movement. So this is a misinterpretation that maybe has led to many yoga teachers thinking that you must relax in a pose. 29. This one also, it looks like a very simple pose, but it's a very powerful one, and therefore also it has another sutra to describe its effects. Sutra 29, this most excellent of all asanas, Paschimottana, makes the energy flow through Sushumna, the 3rd energy channel, stimulates the gastric fire, makes the loins lean, and removes all diseases of men. So again, vital energy, stimulation. Also, Sushumna Nadi is mentioned, the third channel through which energy rises up to fuel the crown chakra. Makes the loins lean, so the hips and thighs more flexible. And I don't know what the diseases of men are. I can think of maybe the prostate or something, or maybe related to this toxic masculinity that we talked about with the previous exercise. Not sure what they mean by that. Can be many things. Sutra 30. Place the hands firmly on the ground and support on the elbows the sides of the navel. Raised in an elevated posture in the air like a rod. This position is Mayurasana, which you have tried also a little bit with the introduction of the fire poses a couple of weeks ago. Sutra 31. The Mayurasana cures quickly all diseases like gulma, which is enlargement of the glands, udara, dropsy and other stomach diseases, etc. And it overcomes the imbalance of the humors, namely Vata, Pitta and Kapha. It reduces to ashes all food indiscriminately taken, kindles the gastric fire, and causes to be digested even the Kalakuta, which is a terrible poison. Clearly, balancing on your elbows like that on your abdomen gives a very strong stimulation to your digestive organs, the stomach and the intestines and what have you. Considerably stimulating and improving vital energy, but also literally the digestion, the digestive power. Sutta 32, and the last one for this session. It's most people's favorite pose, I think. Lying on the back on the ground at full length, like a corpse, is Shavasana. Shavasana removes fatigue and induces repose of mind. Nothing to add to that. Questions about the asanas?
I have one unrelated question.
That's okay. Any question is always good.
So Yoga Nidra is very popular nowadays.
Yeah.
This meditation exercise that focus on your hands. I've tried that, the YouTube version.
Yeah.
Does that ever appear in the scriptures? Is it a
Nidra is described in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and it is not what they do these days as Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is not an exercise. It is a change of the way in which you sleep, because unconditioned human beings are always fluctuating between tamas and rajas, and so when you sleep you are in a very deep tamas, and when you wake up it's heavy and difficult to start the day, and then during the day you're full of energy, and in the evening again you become very tamas. Yoga Nidra is actually when you practice yoga throughout the years for an extended period of time, your sleep changes. And you notice that part of the night you are sattvic, and because of that you have a feeling that you're in a meditative condition. You're meditating during your sleep because you're in sattva. That is a condition that normal people do not achieve because they're constantly fluctuating between tamas and rajas. And as a yoga practitioner, you're still fluctuating between tamas and rajas, but more and more centered in sattva. And that starts to occur during your sleep. And yoga nidra is the changed condition of your sleep, really. So yoga nidra is not really something that you can do, but it's something that occurs as a result of regular yoga practice. If you do yoga correctly, of course. Good question. All right, let's have a short break before we start with asana.